good, and it sounds like it'd be a really good like real world aviation podcast, like with Dan Greider.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Dan Greider is like the worst fucking.
I don't know that I've ever watched.
No, it's not.
Okay, this is not it.
The ones I watch for the real world content are Corporate Pilot Life, because all he does is show videos of him. It's like a Just Planes level of like he's got the multi and it's him and his global and he's like landing and stuff like that. So it's pretty sweet. And he just started uploading recent. Like he was gone. Like he wasn't gone, but he was flying. I guess he was flying his ass off for like 8, 9, 10 months, and now all of a sudden he's like putting videos out pretty close. And Pilot Obet, which if you haven't heard of Pilot
great.
Obet,
I like
dude,
him.
I was gonna say as a 744 guy, I was like, there's no way you can't not like.
He's great, and also he's just very charming.
Yeah, and he's humble. I liked it, but then again, he flew for like 29,000 hours and then decided to become a YouTuber. He's not like a lot of these guys where they flew for 27 hours and they become an instant influencer and like
right.
And that's what a lot of the real pilots have a problem with the instant influencers is because in their mind they worked hard. They slugged through the regionals, they did all this, but some instant influencer, like a Swain Martin, gets in, he's like 25, right. He's flying a 767. That's what a lot of the real pilots have a problem with.
All right, here we go. I have it.
All right.
And let me close this so I'm not rewatching. And then I will send this to you. All right, there we go. Here. We are live.
Oh, we're live. Oh, there it is. Yeah, I've seen it. Yep, right here. Yeah.
Okay. I see I can see. Well, one thing we would have to tweak is the. I can see your fan moving. There's so many little things.
I think I have to exit out of here.
Exit out?
No, because like I've got a lag.
Oh yeah. No, you're right. Or just put it on. Just mute it. There is a lag. There's about a 10-second lag.
Okay, there we go. Yeah, I got it on mute. Yeah.
Perfect. Right, there you go. It's just proof.
I can see myself.
It's just proof of concept that it's working. That's
there we go.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
okay.
Now I'm oddly looking at myself, looking back. It's all laggy. It's funny.
Right, exactly. Now I could put so we could put this in your Discord if you want.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah,
you want to do that?
I think.
Or do you want me to do it? I can do it.
I got it. I'll do it.
Okay.
I got it. Let's see. Bang, bang. Bang, bang, I shot you down. Oh, no, we can't do that. I forgot. No real music.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's got to be...
yeah, it's got to be all generic and everything.
Exactly.
All right. Yeah, so, I mean, here we are.
All right.
We're doing the thing.
Now, one thing I'm not sure about is I don't see... Oh, I think I can pull up a way to... I think I have a way to see the chat.
Okay.
Let's see here.
Oh, we got... I think I got...
chat.
I got DJ over here. He's looking...
All right. There's a chat.
Oh, thanks.
Is he throwing shade at us?
Yeah, he's straight into me. It's all me. I think he's throwing shade at me.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, what do you expect with this crowd?
Oh fuck! I just realized I gotta take that off because it's got my full name, like my whole name.
On which
I gotta
thing?
take. It's that right there, as you can see.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't read that from here, but maybe somebody can.
Yeah, some enterprising bastard.
Gotcha. There's always somebody.
Oh yeah.
All right. So do we have? So DJ's looking. Oh, is he looking at your?
Yeah, he's looking at me. Can you hear us? Hey,
got it.
Type if you can hear us, DJ. Which he'll get that eventually, but yeah.
2 people are watching now, and 2 of them are us.
That's a good deal. I think we're doing a.
That's how they all start. Yeah, just watching
2
yourself.
and then 100,000. You never know. We get the little gold.
Gold
Or no,
seal.
it's silver. You get the silver one for 100,000. I think.
Gotcha. All right. Is it?
Oh, he said yes. I can hear you perfectly. Perfect.
Oh, good. All right,
Awesome.
That's excellent. All right, good. Well, then why don't we do our topic of the day then?
All right,
FS
Labs.
So basically, so we know DJ's watching, right? Hello.
Yeah.
How are you? And thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
He just left. He just left, by the way.
Oh, he's pre-flighting. That's why.
There you go. Well,
he's in the plane. He's in the actual plane.
Oh, gotcha. Well, that's a little scary. So I mean, the number one it's not even an elephant. The number one item of the day, without any question, is Concorde.
Concorde, 100%. Flight Sim Labs, Concorde.
They have come alive. They had a stream today, which
we were waiting. We've been waiting forever.
Yes.
For
and
years.
I must say,
some of us for years.
How many years has it been now?
They announced it. Ooh, it's a while. It's not when Andrew Wilson did the first look. It's way.
Oh no, way before that, because they did the little. They did the little psych out.
I want to say COVID.
They did the little psych out for it when they put Sharklets out. It was right at the end of the Sharklets promo video, which was 2021.
And then you see in the back like Sharklets, I'm your daddy, and you see the planned form of the Concorde. It's very beautiful.
Yep. And I don't know if they had said anything about it before then. I don't recall. Because my sense is I think some people knew they'd been working on it for longer than that.
They had to have been.
Yeah, but that was not a state secret. But I think that obviously today was a big mark for them to have a public stream of their new product.
And not even one of their team members. I guess it's a beta tester.
It's a beta tester, but. No, he's not one of their team members. He's not a dev. Mm-hmm. And I know Johnny has a channel, and obviously some people have watched him on there. And yes, he's part of the SimFest group, so some people see him there too. But it's not like they said, we'll get Black Box or Chewy or somebody more in the main. They went with someone who knows this plane, has been flying this plane for 2 years, and knows it backwards and forwards, and boy did it show.
Yeah.
The confidence level in that plane, the description of what was going on, the ability to talk about the plane while flying the plane, and it's no easy feat to fly the plane, were self-evident in the stream, and I think put a great spin on this for FSL coming out of the gate with a product that, admittedly, since it's going to be on P3D, it's going to be a little bit nichey. Yeah. But
that's going to be
it was impressive.
Kind of the big deal, right?
All right, so
you're on P3D.
You're our real. You're the Concorde expert in here. So
kind of.
So tell me what your first impressions were from what you were able to see, recognizing that you were not able to catch the whole stream.
I mean, me personally, so I had the spiritual successor to this whole thing is the SST Sim Concorde, which is way back, early 2000s, 2D panel. It had an automated flight engineer, believe it or not, even back then. So kind of really super advanced. I remember I had a 3-ring binder, like that thick with the manual, like real deal. First time you had to sit there. I think my first impression, honestly, was when I saw the pushback video. So going kind of that video as well.
Yeah, and that was Andrew Wilson's video of yesterday.
Andrew Wilson's yesterday, and just that briefing, and just the cadence of the pilots, and the things they were saying, the voices, the kind of immersion they're trying to do. It's not like FS Crew where it's all very canned and you know, a lot of this, it's very scripted. Like it felt, obviously it was scripted. Obviously they sat down and they were like reading it, but the way they read it, the kind of intonation, the tone of the voices kind of made it feel a little bit more as in you were kind of like a more a formal setting, but in the cockpit where like everybody knows what they're doing. So like you know, the phraseology isn't always 100% like on the note. You know, they're saying like they're ad-libbing, they're doing a little thing, and I really was impressed by that. Fast forward to this video, you know, we obviously see the Concorde where it's beautiful. You know, first time we're really seeing like a lot of good external shots. And we got to see the whole flight deck, and that was really my like the depth of field with the flight deck. It all looked proportional. It all looked very Concorde. My only experience being on a Concorde was 2004. I went to New York when I was like young. And this was just when like Alpha Delta, which is the Concorde that's there, that's getting painted, was there for less than a year at this point because you know they ended service like November, and I forget when they shipped Alpha Delta there, but I went there and the big thing, even little like 10-year-old me was saying, which I'm kind of aging myself there, but 10-year-old me back then was like, this is cramped. Like this is a very, very cramped space. You could look in the cockpit and it's very narrow because it's not even like a traditional narrow body where you have a 3x3 or even like a 2x3. It's a 2x2, you know, and it's even smaller than a traditional narrow body. So that was kind of the big thing for me was seeing that the cockpit, like the depth, especially like the glare shield, you know, it has that extended piece that covers the gauges from the sun glare when you're up that high. So those were kind of the things.
I don't recall that specifically about the look. Yeah.
No, it's okay. Like those are kind of the little details that I noticed. Everything felt proportional. Does that make sense? Everything
so in other words, in the view that we saw, you thought it.
In the view that we saw, which I don't know if that was Chase plane. That was never divulged. If it was, he's Johnny. That's the guy's name, right?
Johnny Bond.
Flyboy. Yeah. Yeah. He said that it works because I remember I specifically asked about the Chase plane working. Did it work?
Yeah. And indeed, they've said that they're even going to have a Chase plane profile ship.
Yeah, they're going to have a profile.
Why I don't know because it's not like you can't set a profile up.
That's what they were using.
Right. I would bet that he was. Oh, I did see him access some of the 2D panels with, you know, sort of right-clicking them closed with the mouse and that sort of thing. Yeah. But I would bet a lot of the exterior shots were Chase plane.
And then that they're using the Hewlett-Packard 2000 LX as your main interface is kind of like this. That's beautiful.
And what was funny about that to me was that was something they had not mentioned at all.
I think they hinted at it.
But I mean, I hadn't. Did they? I could be wrong.
It wasn't. What they had said there would be no EFB. Now,
well, of course not.
I know they had said that they were including the calculator. Because if you watch, you just mentioned IITV, right?
Yeah.
If you watch the flight engineer in that, he pulls out the little Hewlett Packard and he's doing all his little things through that. And I think that was a really, really clever way. I know another developer. I won't divulge, you know, what they're doing, but I know another developer that is going to take not the same route because it didn't have the calculator, but they're going to take a similar route. Because of the age of the aircraft, they're not going to use an EFB. And they did the similar thing. And I think they did a really, really good job of like, hey, this aircraft was designed first flew in 1969. It had its first revenue service in 1976. Like EFBs weren't even a hint of a glitter in a software hardware.
In 1969, we were just trying to get to the moon with a computer that you would laugh at if anybody put it in front of you today.
Hey, think about it. In February 1969, two of the most prolific aircraft kind of that we think of in the modern era, the 747 and Concorde, both had their first flights in February 1969.
And was the first, but okay, so the first, and the Concorde was the first flight. Was that the Air France one? that
No, that was just the prototype.
Or the prototype.
Yeah,
but they
yeah.
flew
No,
it out
was.
of Toulouse.
I think it had the Air France, the old.
Maybe
school.
it did, but they flew it out of Toulouse, right?
Yes.
Okay, but then in July of '69,
Yeah.
they flew one out of was it Bristol? That was the first one they flew in England. Was in July.
Yeah.
Of '69, right? So like only a few days before
Yeah.
they landed on the moon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a lot of technological advances. But anyway, they did. No, I mean, if you think about it, they did a really, really good job of making it so that you feel like this is an experience, right? I think that was the biggest takeaway for me. They're not making another Concorde add-on, right? Because like we already have a couple of those, and they're politically, just to be euphemistic, they're mediocre at best, and that's being kind, in my opinion.
I don't think they're going for this level either. Just in fairness, I don't think if you guys DC Designs, I don't think they're going to tell you yes, that's what we had in mind, because I don't have it, but my strong recollection is there's an FMC in it.
Yeah, so there's this weird half-ass like LTN, FMS, INS baby like morphed kind of Quato from Total Recall thing going on with that, and it's just one of those things that's like you just look at it and you're like, and I'm not a gatekeeper except for Concorde. Because I think that, with Flight Sim, it's whatever. That's the whole point of it. But Concorde is like this really special aircraft. They made 17 of them. 14 were production models. They had 3 pre-production and then the prototype. And it's just a really special aircraft that I think that like deserves, to kind of have that realistic touch. And people could take that for what they will. Like, of course, there's going to be people like, well, I'll fly Southwest Concorde. And it's like, well, I mean, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Just bear in mind, though, that paint scheme, you're going to be, you're never going to make it to mine, too.
Yeah, you're never, exactly. Like, the only things you're going to, like, Pan Am would have been good. TWA would have been good. Qantas. The Singapore one looks fantastic, by the way.
Yeah.
The half and half Singapore Negus looks really, really good. And I don't like Negus either, but just personal preferences. But that was kind of the big takeaway. I was just watching it. I didn't get to the landing yet. I was in Fellas Discord, and they were saying that he did the Canarsie.
Yeah.
And I would assume it would have been 1-3 left, because usually you don't get the Canarsie into 1-3 right. So it would have been 1-3 left, which I thought was really, really interesting as far as they were saying that he was using the INS as a backup for his visual, and he didn't cut the autopilot out until 500 feet, which apparently, according to some of the big, like, you'd say I'm a Concorde expert. No. These guys and Fellas and some of these other guys like Ray, we know about Ray and
Ray was even mentioned in the stream. So
these guys are like big brain. I have so much more to learn about that bird than even I know. And I have Brian Trubshaw's, actually, you can't see it right there, but I have his book. He was the other test pilot. So you had Andre Turcotte and you had Brian Trubshaw, and they were the respective English and British chief test pilots for Concorde. And I've got his book, Complete Inside Story, great book. Not plugging it.
Well, it's interesting because I just got on Audible, because I like to listen to books mostly. I just got Mike Bannister's book, so I'm looking forward to listening.
Which one is that?
So he's it's just
I know who Mike Bannister is.
Yeah, it's just called Concorde. It came out in the last year or so.
Okay. I might get that because I have Audible.
And it's gotten good reviews, and I thought I would listen to it. He narrates it himself. Yeah. And
that's fantastic.
Yeah, I saw a little interview with him as well from some book fair in the Isle of Man, and I decided not to watch most of it because I want to hear I want to listen. I want to listen to the book.
Sure.
So, because obviously he's sort of giving little anecdotes from the book.
Yeah.
But it's I suspect it will be interesting. He also talks a little bit about his career in aviation, just generally, of course, as you might expect.
But no, it was a really good show. Some people said there were bugs. I couldn't really find any. Then again, like
know.
I said, I'm not
What
the
sort of
world's-
bugs? I don't know.
And it was just there were bugs, and I feel like a lot of this. So like we can get to the elephant in the room, the malware thing. Like, to be completely honest, I am personally willing to hedge my bet on giving them a second chance. Um, I I kind of have, as you do, you have little people in the community. It seems like that may have been kind of a lone actor situation from what I heard, but not going to really expound on that. But anyway, I feel like giving them a second chance. I think this is a great product to do that with. I think you can see the love that's gone into this product. I mean, it's just and I heard Andrew Wilson, and I thought this, like, I honestly thought, oh, this is another flight sim nerd that just really loves Concorde. I had no idea of the level of just access he's had to that bird in his own personal. I didn't know that at all. Because it's not really.
I mean, he was talking about going to the like maintenance hangar in 2003.
Exactly. Mm-hmm,
is how he got some of the sounds and things like that. I mean, no, he's a next level person. I'm going to add one thing. Now, I came, of course, to all of this after the big brouhaha about test.exe or whatever the hell it was.
Yeah.
And listen, as a practical matter, there are going to be problems potentially with every developer, vendor, whoever it is. From what I understand, it's the kind of mistake where I could see where some people would say, I am not inclined to give it another go.
Yeah, 100%.
But I have bought multiple products from them myself. There are other people, as you mentioned, who have. There's people I know who I don't know them real well, but I've met folks who are beta testing this program or the Concorde add-on and have nothing but good things to say about the people that they've worked with there to be a beta tester on this product and how they came to be beta testers. And I personally have no worries whatsoever about buying this product, installing this product. I worry far more about what Microsoft wants to know when I install Windows than what these guys want to know. Yeah. And I'll just add one other thing to that too, which is, and then we can come back to Concorde, but people are free to feel strongly about how some of these actions are taken and how things are addressed. And it sounds like, maybe at the time it wasn't addressed very, very well. And that's, something for them to deal with. And I think 100%. You can see that years on, it has not been forgotten. The flip of that, I would say, is people did really freak out and overly criticize another dev who were very much looking forward to their product coming, and that's TFDI, about the 5-second security breach in the sale.
I remember that.
And people went ballistic, and I'm like, listen, as somebody who actually may have been at risk, I was perfectly okay with the answer that they gave me and what they did, and there were no ill consequences of what happened. And if you are looking for faultless companies to work with or buy products from, you can forget it, because you won't be shopping at any major vendor on this planet. I'm talking about the big vendors who've got teams of cybersecurity people working for them, and not a one of them can tell you they have never had a problem. It's not possible. So get over it. Okay, anyway, rant concluded.
No, you're good. So back to Concorde.
Yes.
It's a really... I think a lot of people were impressed with some of the little niche details. I saw on the Fellas Discord, a lot of people were very happy that it didn't have a plus 7,000 foot per minute climb like some of the other add-ons have. So it's got a proper flight model. It's got a proper center of gravity calculation. I was even impressed when Andrew Wilson was talking about how they calculated the sonic boom sound to be where your camera is positioned in the sim, and I'm just like, this is some next level thing. Instead of just playing a sound, boom, and obviously, yeah, sure, as the plane flies by, they actually sat through and were like, oh, the camera's positioned here, so technically, based on how fast the aircraft's traveling, air's moving, your camera position, this is when the sound's going to hit.
Yeah.
Right. And you're just like, that level of detail is nuts. And I can forgive some of the people that have said like, oh, the textures look flat, or oh this, or oh that, because we already talked about it. Their textures have never been the next level. Like that's just not who they are. They are okay. They're serviceable. They look good. That they're the facsimile of the real thing. The geometry is correct. That's all you care about, because when you buy the FSL product, you're buying something that is very system complete. I would say the word I use is high fidelity.
Sure.
I don't like study level, because technically, if you've never flown a PC-12, the Coronado PC-12 is study level. You know what I'm saying? It's a very ambiguous marketing term. I like the term.
But I think we get the gist that
Sure.
you can't just put it in different terms. You can't just control E and go. So
yeah,
that's right. And I do think that I actually think that for P3D it looks fine.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't know that I've been in other P3D planes that looked markedly better to me. I've spent a fair amount of time in the PMDG planes. They don't look like that much. I think iFly looks okay. It has its cartoonish moments, but it pops a little bit more. Like, there's a little more definition here, and it's just, I think they've tried to make it so it would stand out a little bit in contrast and things like that, where sometimes, particularly in the PMDG 737, I feel like it's a little mushy. But it's kind of dark. It's a little bit like, I've always thought it looked just a little, like, to my eye anyway, and I'm not saying that it's bad or anything. I just always felt like it's a little bit kind of, I don't know, flat's the right word, but part of it has to do, I think, with just the way it's colored.
Sure.
Or the way they imagine the light working. Like, it's probably a light function more than it is literally a texture function. Because I do think one of the things that FSL has done pretty well with things like spotlights is make the lighting piece of it work a little bit better.
Yeah.
And TFDI's leaned on that a little bit too. But the bottom line is P3D never looks that good. So I don't know what the hell you want. In my mind, I was watching this stream today, and I felt like it looks pretty good. It looks clean in terms of you can see things. The gauges are, even in the stream, I felt like they were pretty readable. I suspect if they were up on the screen in front of me, it'd be a lot easier and pleasant to use. I thought I'm not a huge sound person in the sense that I have never really stopped to think exactly what some engine sounds like, or whether or not in the cockpit you're going to hear it exactly this way. But I felt like you knew that this was a plane where the sound situation would be probably markedly different than an average plane for obvious reasons. Yeah. And it seems as though they went to great pains to make it, realistic, or as realistic as they could muster, especially when you don't have access to a working plane to make those sounds. And then, as you said, to make the soundscape work even in an exterior shot with a sonic boom. Yeah. To me, that goes back to your point, which is you're getting a complete package.
Yes.
And this is just for me, I think one of the things that I saw today that really reminds me of why FSL is also next level, because while all of those things are true, those little touches that you were talking about also are self-evident. So the perfect example of that, once again, you can see they had plenty of GSX integration to make it seem, more realistic, and how that fit together. And we saw that also in the pushback video. You had some extremely clever use of flight plan documents, sim brief integration, even though this isn't like a CPDLC plane.
Not at all.
But it will still take some flight plan information and let the FO work with it. It will create those custom flight plan documents. And yeah, obviously someone figured out how to populate it. No matter what you ran or which flight plan you were using, it's going to figure it out. But someone spent a hell of a lot of time doing that. Not only did they do that, but they gave it all that look and feel.
Yep.
And to me, I hate to use this. I hate to use this comparison because maybe it's not a fair comparison, but in my mind, especially in P3D, they've had one major competitor in this segment, and that's PMDG. And PMDG can't touch them with a 10-foot pole on that sort of thing.
Not even close. You and I have already talked about this before this, but I think there are tiers to high fidelity, and I would certainly put PMDG as like a base tier high fidelity.
Sure.
So you're getting failures, you're getting a good sound, you're getting an aircraft that you have to start it the way you would start it in the real world, all that sort of thing. But I think that where the PMDG fails and where FSL and like a hot start especially, both of those can kind of be grouped together, is you have a complete package. Hot start did the FBO. So they made you feel like, hey, I don't have to exit the sim to go do anything. It seems like FSL has largely, it looks like that the plan is going to go to an external screen. I'm not really too mad about that. That's me personally. I have a FlyPad anyway, so I want to see if I can get that to come over to the FlyPad, which I know that's not really realistic for Concorde operations, but I'm also not in a Concorde simulator, so like some liberties can be taken. But you're seeing that level of an experience when they had the water pump sound.
Yep.
Like they literally, while you're loading up, there's some lady talking, hey, like welcoming the passengers. And then every 20 seconds you hear this, and you're like,
yep.
What the hell is that? And if you're not, you have to be like a super kind of, special kind of Concorde geek to know exactly what that was.
But even if you don't know what it is, you're still getting that sort of take on it. Now, one thing I did hear, and I have to go back and really check that video. I don't know that there's going to be much in the way of failures for this.
So I think that was an initial statement. They said they have to build something around the failures. And you know what, to me, I think that's okay for me. I like failures, and here's why I like failures. I don't like failures because I use them. I like failures because that's a barometer of system depth.
Sure.
And what I mean by that is you have to do the system right in order to simulate the failure properly.
Correct.
So that means that hey, they went through the pain. I may not use it. Some Joe Schmuckatelli may use it, or some real world pilot who's either trying to maintain currency, like a lot of them did through COVID. Just letting everybody know, a lot of pilots who were on furlough were using PMDG, FSL to maintain currency. You know what I'm saying? Because they were out of jobs. But, obviously not maintain currency, but maintain proficiency is what I'm trying to say. Keep that stuff in the top of their mind. But
especially since when they do go back and have to train, the first thing they're training is freaking failures.
Yeah, exactly.
Because that's what they spend their time training.
Yeah, so they'll train failures, and it's good that, and like I said, it's a great barometer for system depth. So I think that the system depth is there, obviously. I feel like if you did things wrong things are going to happen, or things are just not going to work. But
I agree. I think what won't happen is an engine will not randomly die. But if you screw it up, it'll die.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that eventually they're going to get it to a point, because that's FSL. They want that. They're going to want, because somebody's going to want to be at Mach 2 and then have one of their 593s let go and actually utilize the little tactical map that they made to kind of figure out what they want to do. There's some simmer out there that's going to want that, and FSL will deliver on that. I don't think it's going to be at release.
It didn't sound like it.
Yeah, that's what I heard too. I was actually just listening to that part, I think, before we had this call.
Yeah, because I know one of the questions I think Johnny had asked, or somebody had asked, and Andy replied was sort of, well, yeah, early on there were a decent number of diversions because
they had engine
issues.
failures. Apparently, he was saying that the inlets specifically were very prone. They were very fragile. Fragile may not be the word, but they were very, very. Yeah, they were very prone to failure. Yeah.
Interesting. Also, I think that I think Johnny did a sort of zoomed in on the inlets and noted that the actuators on the inlet doors work.
So speaking of that, there was one item that I knew needed to come up, and I'm glad they addressed it, and that was performance. Because as you and I both know, P3D is not the shining beacon of optimism or optimization that Microsoft Flight Simulator is. And so they yeah, exactly.
That is shocking. You know what's next?
Wow.
What's next? Are you going to tell me some members of Queen were gay? I mean,
whoa! Breaking news!
Right, exactly.
Is terribly optimized. It's horribly optimized. No, but anyway, I'm glad that they kind of they addressed that, and they said that they're going to have like how the Fella 742 has the kill objects. I think it's going to be the same kind of.
I don't think I know that, but it's good to know because I might want to use that.
Yeah, seriously, like, dude, put it on. I put it on the NASA supercomputer I have. Trust me, you need it. So both of us have really stout systems. I think yours is probably more stout than mine is, but we both have really stout systems now.
Yeah.
But for people who may not, there's going to be an option for you to turn off the cabin, which is probably 80% of your performance issues. I've never been a fan of personal cabins. I think in Concorde you can make an exception because, especially if you're going to make videos with it, obviously the little ticker that's on the bulkhead. I like stuff like that. But me personally, in something like the MD-11, I like cargo anyway, so I'm not going to look at the car. I'm not going to look at the cargo bay.
I want to look at the cargo if it's come loose and my center of gravity is flopping all over the
thing that eventually we could talk about regarding they want to do actual physical modeled pieces of cargo.
I think it's a good idea. I think that's one of the things that Any Builds actually did a fun kind of nice thing with the Beluga.
And the 225. They did that with that because you have different cargoes that you can load up and everything like that. I think this Concorde is. I know there are going to be naysayers, and I feel like a lot of the naysaying though is more centered around what we talked about with the test.exe thing. Yeah. I think people are not really objectively taking it back, putting that to the side, and then saying, what am I seeing in front of me? And I know believe half of what you see and none of what you hear. But come on. The FSL A320, those narrow body buses are the best air buses you can get on the market. I don't care what anybody says.
God, here comes the flame war now. I'm going to go duck under the table, and when the 0 people in chat are done raking you over the Phoenix coals, you let me know.
No, I'm sorry. The EFB, everything that they have, the GSX integration, it's just they did it first. Let's get that out of the way. They did it way first.
Yeah.
They have their own custom flight model that has nothing to do with something that already existed that kind of made it trash in the ProSim model, which they even have admitted, Phoenix have admitted the limitations of the ProSim model and are now actively backpedaling and getting out of that.
Right.
And so the EFB for the FSL, but my point is that I already know the quality of that product.
Yeah.
I've seen with my own eyes what this Concorde is going to do, and I am very excited. I have yet to. The TFT IMD-11 is here. FSL Concorde is like through the roof as far as excitement. It's a for me. I haven't flown this plane like, and when I had it, like I did like 1 or 2 flights, and it was just like my little, like young simmer brain couldn't comprehend it. So I was like,
right, like what the hell is this?
Yeah. But now that I have like, especially in the last 5 years, I've gotten really, really like active into trying to learn these things. Different planes, because like I only flew the 747-400 for a while.
Yeah, why
and
not?
That's a fantastic add-on, but it's a really great add-on.
It's a great add-on. I'm a fan of the 400. So what? Well, all right. So I'm going to put this out there then. So I know one of the big questions that everyone's going to have, and is already talking about, is, it's coming for P3D, and a lot of people have already uninstalled P3D, or they never bought P3D,
sure,
or whatever their issue may be, and I think we all know that the day it releases, the very next post is going to say MSFS when? And I think that there's an interesting question here on 2 fronts with that. One is how will FSL price the P3D version, and will that impact at all how they market MSFS version? Assuming that the MSFS version is not 2 years away. They did make it clear it's not weeks away either, but I think there's some interesting questions about, particularly for people who are genuinely budget minded on this. What do I do? How much it's going to cost? We've seen some interesting rumors about how much it's going to cost. Yeah. I will say
we saw the very interesting one that
yes.
that was $80, and that's, for what I just saw, that's a fucking steal. I'm sorry, I'm gonna use the F word, but that's I think a steal.
I think if you have P3D and they come out and it's $80, that's is generally in the no-brainer purchase category.
That's a no-brainer.
What one issue I think will be interesting to see is if that also means that there won't be any MSFS discounts. And I wouldn't expect it at $80.
My theory is that we saw that, and the person who we both hold, to have a reputable a reputation as far as like they wouldn't fib about it. Now, of course, whoever the source was from, whatever. But my theory is that if it is $80, the reason is because they never offer discounts, and when they move over to MSFS, there's no reason to charge more than $80. Leonardo got still gets so much flack for having a 75-year add-on, which I do admit that in the EU it's actually €90.
Right, when you add the
because there's a I think the value added tax is what
sure.
Which is like I like the Leo. I've had the Leo since P3D. Yeah. I think it's a fantastic add-on. I don't think it's worth €90 in MSFS. I think that there is an argument to be made that both the sounds, and yes, I know, talk to real Mad Dog pilots, they're like, you can't hear shit but wind noise up in the front and all that. But when you go to the exterior,
your grousing.
Yeah, exactly. But when you go to the exterior, the sounds are like really lackluster there. Even though we all know the JT8 Delta is like a screamer, right? Like it's insanely loud engine. And so, like, I get that with the textures, which, for me, the textures, as long as it looks the part and it does a relatively good job, we saw that with Concorde today, I'm not going to pass that up. There are some people that are like, man, this isn't, 4096 by 4096 at a minimum. This is a no-go, or like, it doesn't do 60 frame per second minimum. This is a no-go,
Right, I got to get back to playing Baldur's Gate.
And that's the thing is a lot of these people, a lot of the MSFS has a different expectation because I think a lot of them are newer simmers that maybe come from a more gaming background, and that's nothing wrong with that, by the way. I'm grateful as a person who's been in this hobby for 20 years, almost 21 years. I'm grateful because this hobby got stale. There was nothing new coming out, so like nothing new. You had 777, 747. You had the Airbus narrow bodies. The 787, which feels like it's become vaporware now. You had a really mediocre A330, or you could go to X-Plane, which was until like 2021 had some mediocre add-ons itself. So, if anything, Microsoft Flight Simulator and the people it brought have been great. And I think the price thing is going to be predicated on that. You cannot charge $150, even if it's Concorde, even with the great sounds, even with the VFO, VFE, or well, I guess it would be VFC, the Virtual Flight Crew. Even with the VFC, you can't do that. It's just the market is not going to accept 150. They're not even going to accept $100 because I think Marketplace is it's regionally priced though, right?
It is. Yeah.
I don't know if they'll put it on Marketplace though.
Well,
they seem like one of those developers that would be like, we're not going to bother. Like PMDG saw the money signs and they were like, yeah, we got to get the 737.
Not just the Marketplace, but
that's what I'm saying. Marketplace and Xbox. That like, I hate to use the word purist because like it has this negative connotation, but FSL does kind of consider themselves in that like purist vein as a developer.
Yeah, I would agree.
And so I don't see them. They're not going to take money out of their own pocket, so they're going to sell it on their website. I'm just letting you know.
I don't know. You never know, but I agree with you that I don't. Marketplace, if it will actually work as an add-on in the Marketplace, maybe. I don't see it coming for Xbox realistically. But you never, obviously I don't know for certain. What I would say is that I agree with you on the point, certainly in MSFS, the notion that you're going to charge $100 or more is impossible. But I'd also say, FSL is very lucky in a way because all of the nonsense talk about, oh my God, they've missed the boat. They'll never sell a thing in MSFS. Everybody else is beating them to it. Well, first of all, that's total BS. Okay. Second of all, certainly with Concorde, nobody's beaten them to that Concorde. That's for sure. But one of the things I would add to that is there was an interesting sort of side note in 737NG drivers Discord.
Okay.
Somebody was asking him, and I can't even remember what the hell it was about exactly. Something with one of these planes, and he made some comment about likely sales kind of volumes in MSFS, and obviously, he probably doesn't know the exact numbers from anywhere, but he has relationships with some people who make planes.
Yeah.
And may have some insight as to how.
Yeah, small developer.
Yeah,
developer he may not have heard of.
Who may or may not tell him all that much, but he made a little comment, and in fact, maybe I'll just pull it up because I was thinking about this in this context and where somebody like FSL might fit in, and yes, that's what it was. So there was discussion about the whole €500,000 to Aerosoft got from supposedly the German government as part of their, work that they're doing with the A330. Although I gather this is nothing but one of these sort of, hey, can I get a small business loan kind of thing, and you get one. That's at least kind of what it reads like to me, rather than some sort of, oh my God, the German government is, helping Aerosoft develop an A330 for €500,000. Can't be. I mean, governments can't find $500,000 anything. But one of the comments, so it was like a little piece about funded by the state. There, he did a little video because he loves to kind of whip out these videos, and he said this, and somebody says, so they need to sell 7,666 copies, which I think is funny, for let's say €60 just to pay back the money that they borrowed or got, if they're going to pay it back. Okay. And you know what his comment was? He said, which actually isn't much for flight simming. Stuff like Carenado planes easily sell, and I have no idea where he got this, but he might know this. Carenado sell 50,000 copies. When talking about FS business, we are no longer talking about niche like 4 years ago. It's a million euro business these days. Sell 20,000 copies, which is actually quite little compared to actual sales, and you made your million.
Yeah.
And
that's how Rob's. He's got the Falcon out there.
Yeah,
that's how he's paying for it. It's Xbox. It's
but I think this goes back to one of these points, which is if you're FSL, you don't need to charge $150, or as I was thinking for P3D, $199, because it's a completely different market, completely different size market in MSFS. I think that Jorg really put a stamp on this the other day at FS Expo when he talked about that 12 million number that they keep talking about. Thinking. Well, but his point on the 12 million, which they broke down a little bit, was even more telling, right? Which he says, we have of that 12 million based on what we believe, which is not perfect, but presumably there's people who are crunching a lot of numbers at Microsoft on this, that there are 3 million hardcore simmers in that group. Now, he didn't say flight simmers specifically, so there could be people who engage in other sim-related activities. Maybe they love trains, maybe they love something. I have no idea. But hypothetically, he said 3 million hardcore simmers, which I basically took to mean flight simmers for their purposes, okay, who are using their product. There are 3 million hardcore gamers who are using their product. Now, that I assume comes from knowledge that they have about like the Game Pass, Xbox, that sort of thing in terms of what users who use this are using other things. Maybe it also comes from Steam. And then they have 6 million more casual users. But no matter how you slice that market, your opportunity is enormous. And it's continuing to grow.
Hold on,
and I do think that
let's say that PMDG sold a 737-800 to every single one of those users, and they only have to use it once, which they didn't. But just for argument's sake, right?
And you can't. It's hard to factor in exactly what the marketplace regional pricing might do. But even
let's say the 3 million. 3
million. Good, fair enough.
Let's just do the 3 million.
Sure.
And what is that? It's a $70.
Say it's $70. Let's say we took an average. If you had the 900,
it's probably
to 600.
60. It's probably 60 if you average it both.
Call it 60.
Yeah, hold on. This let's.
Do you have your Hewlett Packard FSL computer?
No, I actually have the stream right there. Let's call it 60. The number I got, which is very easy math to do, was $180 million.
Right. Now, they didn't get $180 million.
They did not. But the point stands that there's a huge potential in this market to recoup your development costs. I mean,
and then some.
I only wanted $80,000. I don't think that was, by the way, that's another thing, we could maybe drop anchor on, was the whole, like, people were thinking, like, oh, my God, they're going out of business. In Vernix, I know this from a fact, talking to Colin and a couple of the I didn't talk directly to Colin about this, but I have talked to Colin in my DMs, and I've talked to people who would know they make way more of their money web hosting. I think the $80,000 was just to kind of like help them along, of like
on this project.
Yeah, on this particular project, right?
Sure.
And so again, for FSL, I think the point stands that when they see somebody there will run the numbers too. Look, I mean,
of course they will.
They're going to run the numbers. They're going to be like, we have this kind of point where we need to figure out where our maximum revenue with our maximum amount of buyers is going to be. We have to figure out what that is in kind of relation to the product we're making. Obviously, if they charge $50 for this, they would be leaving money on the table. But everybody would get it, but they would also be leaving money on the table. So I would not expect it to be $50 in MSFS.
No. But if you told me it was going to be $70,
yeah, yep, 100%, and it would be an insta buy. It'd be an insta buy for a lot of people, especially once they see how good that thing will look like. Because we talk about texturing, who knows what they're doing in Microsoft Flight Simulator right now.
Andy did say it looks really good in Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Of course.
So, and I could tell Johnny was like, "Oh, wait a minute, it does." because it seemed evident that he had not seen that
They've
yet.
been keeping their cards really close to the chest.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
I've noticed that. Like, we had the little smattering of like, oh, the A321, and then it's it's Andrew Wilson's Volanta, and it clearly says Microsoft Flight Simulator. And we all know it's like he doesn't strike us as the guy that would have the Latin VFR A321.
No, he would not. No, he would not.
So it's obvious that they're testing. We knew that. Yeah. I mean, everybody's like, oh no, Phoenix, they're going to beat him to the table. I think we had this conversation. DC Designs has a Concorde. Does that mean that all of a sudden FSL can't have a Concorde in the same ecosystem?
No.
Phoenix is going to have an A321 and an A319. Does that mean that FSL can't have one? Because now you have options, right? And we love this. This is what's great about this hobby.
Also,
now we have these options where like you can choose the best of what you want. You know?
And the market can sustain multiple entrants because there was more than one A3 20 series in P3D. You could buy the Aerosoft one if you really want. They had a version. There's two of them in X-Plane.
Yep.
Neither one of them went out of business. I'll point out that if you're a scenery maker in MSFS, the days of but I'm making this airport and so nobody else is going to make this airport are gone. I mean, we had 4 Montreals inbound. We're now down to 3, but because Fly Tampa said I'm not going to make one. But I mean,
I guess that's interesting. They've been really holding on to.
Well, the guy. I mean, what's his name said that they're. I always forget his name, but he's we're getting close on
Amsterdam.
Amsterdam.
They need to. We got the MD-11. I need it.
Hey, you've got East Midlands now. You're good to go.
I don't what you. That's not no.
I gotta tell you though, it looks good.
I bet it does.
Hats off. It really looks good.
What blew me away? V2 or 1.1 of Taxi to Gate. MCO, which of course is my home airport,
right?
As you know.
So they fixed it up to your liking.
They fixed the photogrammetry.
Because I haven't bought that yet until somebody told me it was okay, so to speak. That would be you.
It's good. So it's good. It's good.
I can highly recommend Flightbeam Dulles Airport.
Oh my god!
So
Flightbeam anything is an insta buy for me. The performance and the looks alone are just and with Concorde coming, you better have that Dulles and your JFK. I've got it. I've got it all.
But what we don't have?
I need Barbados.
Yeah, and you know what else we don't have? We don't have De Gaulle.
And we have it in P3D, so I'm not.
But I'm talking about for
There's
MSFS.
one coming though. There's one coming though. Taxi to Gate.
Is Taxi to Gate going to do it?
The next one after.
Are they going to screw that one up too, or are they going to do it right the first time?
I think that they learned their lesson.
You like to hope.
Yeah.
By the way, speaking of Flightbeam, just as a side thing, Mir, I think I told you this, met him at Expo, great guy, so passionate, just couldn't wait to talk about what he's doing, even though he admits it takes him a long time to do it.
Sure.
And he said the competition is getting fierce. You got to bring your A game if you want to be, playing in that league. And I think he's enjoyed playing in that league and wants to stay in that league. So good for him.
I think what you said was the nail on the head, right? That the market can sustain multiple entrants of particular whatever.
Yeah.
Somebody could make a Comanche 250 tomorrow.
They could.
Would they sell versus
A2A?
AccuSim A2A? Probably not.
Yeah, maybe not. But I don't know. Maybe they would. I will say what I have been learning, as you know, because I know you're a dedicated airliner person, really, and so are a number of our compatriots. But having spent a little time doing some GA stuff now, I have a real appreciation for some of the really nice work that people are doing in GA, and I think that there in particular, the flight dynamic piece can be maybe even more challenging because these aircraft are not as stable, even though they should be stable, right? So I use this example just as a side note, but in the default C-172, which BA Virtual likes to use for this training thing that they do, if you hit the inevitable turbulence or what's where I'm updraft, what's where I'm looking for? Thermal, thank you. Or the occasional thermal, which by the way, at the height that you're flying over Great Britain due to the insanely ridiculous amount of interfering airspace above you, you're flying about 4 feet off the ground most of the time. Your plane does a lot of this. And in a real 172 or a Comanche or whatever, if you hit the bump, the plane will move, but it won't come out of trim.
Yeah.
In Microsoft Flight Simulator, it just goes right out. Now, and folks like Comanche, folks like A2A and Just Flight and Black Square, one of the big things that I think they've had to figure out and make it work and yet give you the same right feel is that, yeah, you're going to have those moments, but how to make the plane actually react the way it's supposed to in the controls. And, that's a big challenge in and of itself. And I find that kind of interesting too. And I haven't gotten a lot of time with the Comanche, but it's pretty impressive.
So Professor Crash, who is a really good friend of mine.
Right.
And I know you know him kind of as
a little bit.
Yeah. A little bit, yeah. He's big brain, all right? I asked him, because I peer pressured him into getting the AKD not G word 550, yes. 550. And he also got the Comanche. And for a guy that's oh my gosh. Privacy contents have been updated. My apologies.
That's awesome.
But
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. So my good buddy Crash, he tried out the Comanche, and for somebody who's a stalwart about X-Plane, you know that. He was really impressed with the Comanche. Like he said, yeah, I'll fly that way more. He's like, not that, but he was like, he was like, I am thoroughly impressed with and he said specifically the flight model. He was like, I am thoroughly impressed with what they did with that add-on. So me personally, I have my Honeycomb Bravo. The add-ons I'm waiting for GA-wise are like twins. That's where I think I would enjoy general aviation flying the most.
Yeah.
Because it's tricky. Like obviously, yeah, if you lose an engine in a single engine airplane, you're
toast. Yes.
Yeah. But my point is like there's it's really challenging, to fly a light twin, like a Seneca or something like that.
Have you looked at the Blackbird / Milviz, the 310?
So I've got the somebody told me they didn't like that, and it was Crash, and so Crash ruins all add-ons for me. So every add-on. So like I have the 350, right? The King Air.
Yeah.
And I was really enjoying it, and then Crash told me, he's like, yeah, that PT6 is ass, and I was like, well, I can't enjoy this.
Now, which
anymore.
King Air do you have?
I have the Black Square.
Oh, the Black Square. Okay.
But it uses the default because he didn't actually like update the crappy Asobo PT6 simulation.
Right, because the 310 is a separate one, but I guess I guess Crash doesn't like that one either.
A Continental. Yeah, it is, but I don't know. There was something he had an issue with it. Now my buddy, my coworker, he flew 310s in the real world. He says his favorite airplane he's ever flown. He said he loves the 310. Okay. He come in over the fence, 105 knots.
But he's flown it's his favorite in this. Is he flown it in the sim?
No, he's flown it in real
I know
life.
that, but I was wondering if he also flown it in the sim.
No, dude, this dude's like 74 years old, and I don't even.
Hey, you know what? There's a lot of 74-year-olds with sims. You know how I know? because I met half of them at Flight Sim Expo. The crowd definitely slanted a little older, even older than me. So yeah, but no, there is, I don't know, maybe he doesn't like 310, but it's worth the look, and occasionally it's on sale. Something to think about. But yeah, who knows? Maybe A2A will have a twin engine as well at some point.
That would be nice, like a Seneca or something. I'd be down for something like that. That'd be perfect.
Now,
but
I'm going to be very boring and say I can't. I'm actually really looking forward to seeing what they do with a 172. Since I have, but the reason I say that, now I have a good reason. You're shaking your head, but I have a very good reason, which is since I've
go to your local airfield, dude. Come on.
Well, but since I've actually spent a lot of time with the 172 in the sim.
Okay.
I would actually like a chance to fly it and take some of the things that I had been working on and see what you get. Because when I have their one in P3D, and it is more challenging to fly than the default MSFS one, because the MSFS one is dumbed down a bit, to be sure. Yeah. Like, for example, in the P3D version, I guarantee you that ye of little rudder faith, a.k.a. you better put the goddamn rudder down hard, you will be very unhappy with what happens to you after you take off if you do not. And MSFS, far more forgiving.
So there's torque. So you're saying there's actual torque simulation.
Correct.
In what A2A did with P3D. Okay.
Correct. So I'm just saying I'll be curious to see what they do, and I think that it's still a fun plane to use, especially if you are going steam gauge and you're trying to do some real raw data stuff. It'll push you on the raw data. In fact, I discovered a little YouTube channel of some guy who's a flight instructor who kind of shows how to do all of these things in the sim, and he's just using the 172 to do it, because a lot of students have 172s, and I'm watching it and I'm thinking that looks really goddamn challenging, without any of the really good gizmos to help you do it. You will push yourself to learn, and learn fast. So it is something, because I think all of us enjoy sort of tinkering. I know I do. I love a good, FMC to tinker with, or even the carousel, or a GT, GTNXI or whatever it is, the Garmin. They're fun to use as a person who enjoys gadgets, so to speak. So
I'm guess when it comes to when back to circling back.
Yes.
To Concorde.
Yes, please. I got way far afield there.
No, you're good. So circling back to Concorde, my big thing on Concorde was Andy, I guess. I feel weird calling him Andy. I don't know.
Yeah, well, they were calling him Andy on the stream, so I've been calling him Andy a little bit.
So Andy, he had the little tidbit about ground effect, how it affects Concorde, which is a delta wing, and I don't know how well how delta wings perform in these in the critical phases, so landing and takeoff, but it's piss poor. It's just really bad. They have really high alpha, which is why you have the droop nose, right? Yep. And they just aren't really on low speed really easy to get into a fouled up situation.
Right.
Things can get pear shaped really quick. It was interesting for him to say, you just kind of hold your nuts to 15 feet, and then you chop throttle. Like he said, you do it slowly, and the ground effect just kind of catches it, and you land. He said, otherwise, you're just going to bounce, and you'll float down the runway. And I'm just like, I really love, that's the kind of stuff I love. That's why I talk to some of the people I talk to. I get these kind of technique tips. The whole FMC navigating VOR to VOR, I can learn it, and I have done it. It's just not the technique of land. We set up these 10-hour long flights, and then we scrutinize ourselves on the last 2 minutes of the entire flight.
At least you do. I don't worry so much about it.
No, it's big, and a lot of people I talk to, the landing is the worst time your sim can crash is on short final.
Sure.
That's the absolute worst time the sim can crash. But no, man, it was cool to actually get little tidbits like that regarding how to fly it, because that's important, right? Because this is a very, very it's nimble, but it's not. You know what I'm saying? It's got a lot of ass as far as it's got 4 5.93s, the power to weight's there, but it's very easy for you to get behind the jet. So and I think that's the thing that's really gonna trip people up, right? Kind of you fly the 747, right? If you were to fly, let's say, even for that, let's say you're 172, and then you were going to go to fly, do an approach, and you can do an ILS, do whatever you want. Although in a 172, that'd be painfully slow.
Yes, it would be.
But you could do it, and then try it in the 747, and just see how much faster. Same approach, same everything. Just see how much faster everything's happening in the jet as you're doing it.
Yep.
And then take Concorde, where you're 190 until 800 feet, and you're coming over the fence at 165 knots.
Yep.
It's like MD-11. These are like MD-11 speeds. That's the only other aircraft I could comparable that has such shitty...
But you're in a completely different attitude. Yeah. You could probably barely see the runway. I mean,
even with the nose 15 degrees, yeah.
It's hard. It's going to be tough.
I think that's going to be the big thing. That's why they were talking about this procedure they did at Canarsie, and I want to watch him do it. They said he kept the autopilot on until 500 feet. And I'm thinking, and I mentioned to one of the mods in Fellas, I'm also a mod in Fellas, but besides the point, I was talking to one of the other mods, and I said it probably has to do with stabilization. You would keep the autopilot, because that's the one aircraft where you're making a turn. On the Canarsie, 500 feet is about when you start that turn. When you see the Long Island Expressway, 500 feet is about when you start that turn. And you would want the aircraft to be in as stable of configuration as possible as you start that turn.
Yeah.
Because if you're trying to do it by hand, you could do it. And I've actually hand flown that approach. Really fun in the PMDG 744 of all things on VATSIM, which was a really, really enjoyable experience. But at those speeds, even 744 speeds, things happen very, very quick.
Oh, definitely.
The moment you're over Jamaica Bay, it's not a minute, and you're touching you're touching down.
Yes.
So
it's Kitech-esque.
Yeah, it's very Yeah, exactly. It's Kitech-esque without the
without watching people shaving in the windows in the side.
Yeah. That'll be a great airport, by the way, to land. I'm trying to find the actual route they did. Air France did it. British Airways did it.
It's just on one of the tours.
Yeah, and they go to Kitech.
Yeah. One more Concorde thing, because you were talking about handling. I assume this is in the test pilot guy's book who you have. I assume it was in there.
Oh, Brian Trubshaw.
I've heard this mentioned. A couple of former pilots talking about it. That when they went to do base training, and they went to do the circuits, there was a running record book as to how much altitude you would gain before you leveled off the plane after you took off. So they were supposed to take off, go to 2,500 feet, and do this circuit. Mm-hmm. Which every single pilot, basically, on their first go,
overshot it.
Broke 2,500 by a lot. Apparently, the record was 7,100 because
oh my God.
everybody who their first time in the seat, despite having considerable simulator time, completely unprepared for the shock and awe, so to speak, of the thrust and what happened and how quickly everything happens in the air, and you're done. before you've had a chance to level.
You know where you can kind of get this experience, not the same but similar. The light biz jets, not because they're particularly fast, but because they're so light they climb. So like you come out of Teterboro in like a 650 or a Gulfstream 550 or a CL 650 Challenger. Yeah. You're hitting that 3,000 like you basically gotta like you're almost coming nose down because you're at that point it almost behooves you to switch the autopilot on like right away.
Sure, but of course these guys were trying to hand fly a
circuit. Of course, they're just going right through it.
Right, but the other thing, of course, with the Concorde was not just that all that happened, but of course it's loud and it's rumbling. It's all this. The jets are really they're slick. You're hitting those numbers and. You don't even, I think a lot of these pilots don't even realize just how much of a rocket their thrust to weight ratio they're sitting on. Whereas the Concorde, it sounded like would basically rattle their gizzard, shock their mind for a couple of minutes, and next thing you know they're at 5,000 feet. But it'll be interesting to see test that out ourselves those first couple of times.
I'll screw it up 100%.
Who doesn't? You got to. You have to. I mean, nobody. It's You had mentioned, this reminds me of that a little bit. You had mentioned in sort of getting down the basics of the Fellas, go watch Graham's videos, which I had seen some of his videos. Yeah. And he's a great guy. I like Graham. But when he takes off in that thing, he's so relaxed in the video. He's like, oh, you're just doing this and doing that. And meanwhile, first time I take off it, I'm like, what the hell? I don't know where I am. And I'm looking around like I'm going too fast, I'm going too slow, I'm going too high, because I was hand flying, going too fast, I'm going too slow, I'm going too high, I'm going too low. I was like, okay, I just gotta take a step back here.
Yeah.
Because it was the first time I took off, and I have to remind myself, yes, you're thinking too much of Graham's videos. That is not a good way to do that, because he also told you, don't worry, the TBM, no problem, until you actually try it yourself the first time.
So it's funny you say that, because the first time I flew the 747 online, I took off and I disconnected. The only time I've ever disconnected for an airplane ever, and I learned my lesson, which was I want to be ready to feel confident in doing the flight. The thing that I learned about the Fellas 742 was that you do things early, and there's also things you don't need to do. They got, I don't want to disparage it because I'm not, but the person who gave them the information initially gave them kind of an older 747, which was United, and the checklist they got, that the active checklist you use in the EFB is TWA.
Yeah.
And TWA does some different, funky, weird shit.
Yeah, and Graham even mentions that.
Yeah, so the PAX, I talked to Joe's 100 million times. He's like, yeah, you never do that. Passenger comfort. So he's like, safety, passenger comfort. He's like, the only reason you turn PAX off is if the airport, if you're at Bogota, it's 10,000 feet in the air, some crazy like that where you need the bleeds off. But generally, he's like, yeah, it's bleeds on takeoff, because passenger comfort is safety, passenger comfort, and most of the time, safety's going to be taken care of, so passenger comfort is now the priority.
Right. You can leave a pack on, it'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. You leave the packs on, it's going to be fine. And so that's the one thing I don't like, but I've gotten into a mode where I'll skip. If I know I know this is right, I just skip the item on the checklist. And I think with Concorde, I want to get to a point where because I'm going to throw this in my regular rotation of airplanes. Essentially when I first get it, I'm going to fly the absolute shit out of it.
Right.
But I want to throw it in where at least once or twice a month, maybe 3 times a month, I'm doing a Concorde flight, because it's a 3-hour, 4-hour transcon.
Right, which is actually pretty sweet.
Yeah, exactly. So, I want to get to a mode where I'm weaning myself off of the automated flight engineer, the automated FO. Maybe not so much the FO, because I don't want to do the gear. It's just me being lazy.
Yeah.
But the flight engineer station has a lot to do while you're in cruise, because he's constantly trimming. He's transferring fuel in the tanks
transfer and all that
to trim the aircraft, right?
Yeah.
and so it's a really it seems really fun, kind of like the Fellas to a smaller degree, where like there's certain points where you have to do the scavenge operation,
Yep.
then you have to do the transfer operation, then you have to tank to engine, right? So it's
Right.
kind of like this hierarchy of what you've got to do for the fuel system, and it makes it a little bit more enjoyable to fly.
Right.
the
Or even
aircraft.
just doing a DME update.
Yeah,
somewhere in the
exactly.
middle, that kind of thing.
Mhm. Yeah, and you'll be able to do that in Concorde too, which I think
100%.
flying. And this is my favorite thing. I am so glad that Andrew saw that there were people who were going to want to fly this on VATSIM, and that was a sorely lacking resource, like desert, as far as like the specific flight information regions and centers, right? So like London Center, they have Concords, and they probably had the most built up procedure for Concorde. But like, think about New York Center, think about Boston, or think about Washington Center. They didn't have any procedures for these aircrafts. Now I know for a fact Washington is making a procedure for it. New York Center is going to have a procedure, and I think Boston Center, because I talked to one of the guys on Fellas who's in Boston Center. He's one of their training people. He said they're also doing a procedure. So those centers will be like, you'll be able to fly and fairly accurately do a proper like Concorde flight.
Yeah.
Other than like getting on there and like, can you accept the Ocean 5 arrival? And you're like, no, I'm a Concorde. Like, come on. And then they're
Right.
like, oh, I'll just vector you. And then, this kind of unrealistic, just like vector around Long Island until you hit, they get you on the ILS, right?
Right.
And so they're going to have a lot more realistic procedures. And I think that's a big key, is that not only have they developed this add-on for us as Concorde geeks, they're developing it for like a community thing, so that like the whole experience, because it's not even just like, think about you're flying in your A320 and you hear somebody Concorde and they're doing like the actual procedure. Like, there's a lot more immersion in that. That's why I'm a huge fan of when people fly GA on VATSIM. I love that, because like, it's so much more immersion. Like, yeah, the people are flying little private airplanes on in the real world. Somebody's flying a police helicopter. The army's out there. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is the real world. I really hate when controllers kind of like, no, I don't want to tell you. That's like, well, I mean, I get what you're saying, but like, this is adding a level of immersion. So I think if the controller can handle it, I love hearing all those, because it adds that layer. And I think that's really like the little details about the high frequency radio, like that they actually modeled that, like, and the CellCal works, which that's great. Maybe a small glimmer of hope is that we'll get to use this one day for across the pond. Like,
no,
wouldn't that? Yeah, thanks. That's probably the truth.
Although in fairness,
like, no,
I sort of get why it doesn't work, because then as far as the immersion goes, you're sort of missing it if you're in the Concorde. But I do understand the point.
No, I don't think you are.
Sort of.
Come on. RVSM is from 29 to 41, right? You're getting a block altitude from 45 to 60.
No, what I mean by that, it's not that part. It's the timing. It's just that you're going to be at the end game, 4 hours before anybody else. That's all.
Stagger the slots.
Fair enough.
I'm just saying, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. There's a way it can be done. It can be done. There's a will. There's a way. Did you catch anything about shared flight? Because I saw some people talking about that.
I did not.
I may have to rewatch it.
I did not. Because
somebody said something in the comment, and I was like, are you serious? Because they don't have shared flight for the... That's always been a weird thing for me. These P3D devs that are like super gung-ho about realism, and none of them have integrated shared flight except for the 717, which is kind of like... I'm going to say it's
maybe
mid tier. They could have done a lot better with it. I know Colin knows that. I know they're doing V2. I know,
but maybe it is one of those things where it's just painful in P3D to do. From an implementation standpoint, I have no idea. I don't know about that. And you're right, I missed that part or that question in there, because it does raise an interesting item that, you and I haven't done a shared flight yet, which we will at some point. We need to do it. I'd like to maybe do it with the fellas since you know what's going on.
That's the easiest. We can get high ping. Hopefully, he doesn't fall asleep.
Right, hopefully.
He
should be waking up now. Where is he? Is he on? Is he come in here? No, we haven't seen him.
No, he's dude. He's Australia time. So
I know, but it's 8 in the morning now. He should be up and
he's working,
or even later.
The guy's probably got a fucking job. You know.
Come on, no, just kidding. No. But my other point is, Concorde would be a lot of fun to do a shared flight with. No question about that. It has a lot of potential.
Think about, as the flight engineer, you're actually doing something. Because even in the fellas, like, there's long periods where you're like, I remember Joe's used to talk, he's like, man, there's so much paperwork. He said that's the one thing the sims never get. He said the paperwork. Every minute you're doing a check.
Yeah.
You know, they're doing a check of an engine. They're doing a check of a fuel system. They're doing some check. And they're tabulating all this data. And he said that's the one thing they never get, which I really appreciate that FSL has gone to the lengths they have with this paperwork thing.
Yeah. I think it's great. One thing I would say with all of that is, you know, I do understand why some of the people who are flying modern airliners today are like, thank God I'm flying this. I mean, I might want to have fun flying whatever in the sim from 50 years ago. But, yeah, my job's a hell of a lot more pleasant with what's available today. Thank you.
I've always said this because in a lot of the X-Plane Discord, you get a lot of these like purist shills, I call them, which is unironically one of our buddies' names on my private server.
Right.
As a joke, in jest. But you get a lot of these purist guys that are like really gung-ho. None of them are, by the way, most of them have never flown.
Of course
not. Or if they have, they're private pilots. They're not. And by the way, I've never flown a single second at the controls of an airplane. The most I have is the 737 simulator. I was terrible at it. I mean, I wasn't terrible, but like I found out real quick why there's a reason that, you know, there's a 1,500-hour rule and these guys have all this training and stuff like that.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that if I had a job as a pilot, and I know this is like, it pains me to say this, but I'd probably fly an Airbus if I could. That seems like the most relaxed, chill, just like, I'm going to play Star Wars Angry Birds. And think about it, with CPDLC, all you have to do is contact, hey, you know, Delta 69, you know, check it in, flight level 3350, and then we'll go, you know, switch it over to CPDLC. And then they just send you a little message, and they're like, brr, and everything you get in that center. And so now you're just playing, or you're talking to your coworker, if you don't like them, which is a real thing that happens in the real world. You're playing Star Wars Angry Birds.
Well, you're probably right. I would say that it was interesting. I saw a little video from somebody who I think is a younger guy who's evidently flown the Airbus and the 737, you know, for work, and was talking about sort of his pros and con list. And, you know, it's sort of interesting because, of course, as simmers, we have lots of views of these planes and what's interesting or what's not or the other thing. And, you know, he said, well, as far as these planes go, he's like, I love the way the 737 flies because when you trim it, like you're trimming it, it just feels right. It feels great. I love it. He said, but basically about after that, he's like, most of his pros were in the Airbus category. He's like, actual workspace, 1 billion times more comfortable, bigger, more, you know, like he was, you know, showing comparisons of the cabin size. He's like, look at this. He's like, now watch what happens when, you know, like, he's like, look at this video. We had someone in the jump seat. It's a nightmare. You know, in the 737, he's like, in the Airbus, it's actually installed. You don't have to like put it in front of the door, you know. And these are the things that matter to these guys, right? He's like, and finally, and last but not least, I have somewhere I can eat my damn lunch, you know, with a table. And actually, one of the things he did mention specifically that I do think is probably actually a real benefit to these pilots when they're not having a good day is the ECAM situation. On the Airbus being far more useful. He's like, you know, compared to our situation, you know, in the 737 where we get cryptic, useless, error, and then we have to go find the book and find the right page in the book and start. He's like, yes, we're trained to know where all of that is, but when time is limited, there's no question that the eCam on the Airbus is a much better place to start running your checklist and running through your problem. And to me, I'm like, now that is a real, quality of life as a pilot and as a passenger, maybe even eventually, if you're in that bad situation. That to me was a real example. Now, from a simmer perspective, the 737's fun, and you even switch with more switching and more clicking, and that's fine. And I think there's a happy medium.
Airbus is fucking boring. And I mean that with a capital boring. B. Right. That is the most boring. It trims itself. There's no I kind of almost think in the 737 it's a game to try to actually get it to trim.
Right, because you have no feedback.
You have no feedback. So what you do is you trim it and then you release your stick.
Right, what happened?
You're seeing if it holds. You see it if it didn't do it, and you just keep doing it. It's like a little game.
Yes.
And but in the fucking Airbus, you can literally. I've done it. I've hand flown up to 10 and for 5,000 of those feet, I'm just like this. And then I'm like, okay, I press my little Bravo autopilot, and then I'm off to wherever I'm off to, and I go grab a snack or I go whatever. And it's just like, in the sim, it's really boring, which is why the Fellas and of course the Concorde is going to be amazing because there's little things that you're doing, as the flight is progressing that I think a lot of people don't realize. In the 747-200, had a flight engineer. Literally, the guy was replaced by panel 6 on the 400, which is a giant CB block, and an ICAS display, right? That's literally upper and lower ICAS display and P6, and that replaced a whole guy's job.
Well, they did do that, but I would also say that in the 400, in the implementation, I think they did improve some of that as well. They didn't just replace it. They definitely
I've done a
some
failure
of the
in the 400, like an actual, I planned it, and I was like, I didn't know when it was going to happen, but I was like, I want oil pressure, and it's going to let go. And so I had an inboard engine, almost, it's really a non-event, but
in a 4-engine plane, yes.
Yeah, it's really cool because it gives you the speed, right? It gives you the speed region on the ICAS in purple, and it says, fly this. And it's based on your current configuration. So as you put flaps and out and leading edge devices out, that speed range changes. The 777, 787 goes even further because it has the E checklist. Yeah. And as soon as you have the failure, whatever that failure is, it automatically selects the E checklist, which and it's fantastic. You don't Joe's was telling me because Joe's flew the 777. He was like, you don't even go to the QRH.
Right.
He's like, you just go straight there, and it's which is my other gripe about simmers. Let's model the CBs. I'm like, line pilots, there are you can count on one hand the amount of times that they're pulling a CB when handling an emergency.
Right. Whereas if you do model them in a Cessna or one of these corporate pilots, you might actually have to pull one and put it back 100%. And see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Although, if you do model it, that's cool too. I got no problem with that. Phoenix did take advantage of that. And that's fine. I mean, they took advantage of a spot where they had something. It came over from ProSim. It gave them that ability. And they did it. And hats off to them. I've got no problem with that. But like you say, you're probably not going to do it. Well, we've hit about 2 hours.
Holy crap.
Because that's what we do.
Overrun.
Right, exactly. We'll have to work on that.
Those guys at LaGuardia or Southwest at Midway, we just overrun.
Oh, yeah. Well, LaGuardia is what I was going to say because that's the other guy, Steve at JFK, where he'll yell at you.
Kennedy Steve,
he'll yell at you. Or whatever it is he does. He's sort of amusing.
He's retired. He's been retired for some time now, I think.
Yeah. Did you happen to catch, just before we go, there was a private pilot who was on, I believe, her first solo, maybe? And
lost a wheel?
No, she didn't make her first landing and went around. And she basically panicked. She was like, maybe I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't be up here. This is not good. She was panicking.
No.
And the control.
Is this a Voss Aviation?
It's one of the other ones. I can send you the link.
Yeah, please.
But the controller was so calm. He's like, "You're fine. You're gonna be fine. We can. I just want you to do this. Now I want you to do this." And then apparently, her instructor was on frequency somewhere nearby, and heard it. And she was, for some reason. So she was talking to the controller, and I guess the controller tried to let her talk directly to this woman that was flying, but for some reason it wasn't working, so he was passing it through to her. Yeah. And he's like, now your instructor would like you at 70 knots. He's like, so I need you to slow down just a little bit. I need you to come up just a little bit. And then and she got to a point where she couldn't even repeat the instructions. She was just like, okay, or she would just give her call sign. Did nothing. I mean, like you could tell she was just completely. She must have been like death gripping the wheel. I mean, really. I mean, you listen to her voice.
I laugh.
And then the next thing you know, she's landed. And the guy's like, "You did great. Now just take the first right off the runway, and you're good to go." And but I was like, wow. I mean, the tension on. Just the sheer like hopeless sound in this woman's voice, like, man, that controller was just what a job he did. I mean, they really, for all the bad ATC bits they love to play, hats off to that guy. It was great. I'll send you the link.
Please.
Yep. All right.
The one I was talking about was Captain Maggie, which is what she became known as. She took off, forget what aircraft, the wheel fell off.
Oh,
I mean, the wheel fell off.
Like literally fell off,
yeah, she's like a student pilot. And the same thing happened. The instructor got on there, and you could hear, like, the quiver in her voice, because obviously, like, she's young, like, the wheel fell off. Like, you have no idea what's going to happen, but he coached her right in. He's like, okay, it's the right wheel's off, so left aileron, keep left aileron as long as you can. Okay. All right, now roll off the runway. Kind of thing. Coached very like and he was literally like, we're only going to do this when you're ready to do it. And because obviously you have the wheels gone, all bets are off. You have no idea what's going to happen.
Right.
So.
Man.
Yeah.
What's going on with maintenance? Anyway. That might be slightly unfair. I have sent you the link.
Thank you.
All right, I'm gonna turn our stream off though.
Yeah, you can turn the stream off.
All right, so I guess we should have a wrap up. So thank you all for joining us, whoever you were.
Whoever you were, thank you very much.
Thank you, and for those of you who come back and watch this somewhere in the future, I'm sorry, and we'll be better next time.
Yeah, we will try to up production quality. We will try to up our.
I don't know about any of that, but maybe we won't go for 2 hours. Anyway.
Yeah, we won't drone on forever.
All right, I'm going to stop this now. Here we go.
Concorde good.
Right, exactly. Looking forward to it. Next episode, how much did Concorde cost? Anyway.
We have a whole episode on that.
All right.
Price.